Welcome to Chatterbox Besties with Brenda and Ricki. We're two besties sharing news, gift ideas, and lifestyle hacks to help you live your 10-plus life. Today, the show has been sponsored by the Curated Coach Connector, a personalized coach matching system connecting you with the right life transition, career, or personal development coach. Go to curatedcoachconnector.com for more information. Well, we welcome you back today. And if this is your first time listening, Ricki and I are so happy to have you here. What it's telling us is that you care about you and how you feel, and that you want to live your optimal life. And so let's get into it. So, a few questions. Do you feel like you're guessing your way through midlife? Are you noticing changes in your weight, in your mood, even in your joints? Well, let me tell you, even if you don't have the classic perimenopause or menopause hot flashes, this life stage is really playing havoc with your body, and you might not even know it. And if you do know it, are you getting the answers that you need?
So today we're hosting someone really special. As many of you know from our last podcast, one of the topics we chatted about was the event that Brenda twisted my arm to attend. And I really didn't want to go to it, but I did. It was called the M Factor in Chicago, and M stands for menopause. Can I say it was just really eye-opening forum and great panel discussion. And then the unveiling, if you will, for all women to understand our bodies and what we need to look for and how to advocate for yourself. I'm just going to say that one more time, how to advocate for yourself as a female. I was hesitant to attend, and honestly, I did a complete 180 after the event. I guess you could call me the M Whisperer now.
Well, I knew you would love it, Ricki. And I have heard you're the M Whisperer marching around town talking about all of this, which has really piqued a lot of interest in so many of our connections and our people that are listening. And I'm so thrilled that you attended this with me. And I've been researching and trying to understand this topic for quite some time. And at the M Factor event is where we met our guest today, Jill Foos. She's a perimenopause and menopause advocate and a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. And she's based in Chicago, which is fabulous. The M Factor event was outstanding, but many of the panelists, physicians, and advocates were from all over the country. So we're so excited about having Jill here today as our Chicago resource.
And I just want to give you a little background about Jill, who is skilled in evidence-based strategies for behavior change. She holds certifications at the Institute for Integra Nutrition and Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, and she's specialized training in menopause supplements and gut health. She uses science-based strategies for change, and her specialty is helping midlife women find their longevity and prevention equation, considering lifestyle interventions.
And these are topics they've been in the news. You've probably seen them online, and you may or may not be aware of, and you may or may not be discussing these topics with your doctors and with your friends. But today we have an expert to educate us and to walk us through what we should be considering. Jill is the founder of Jill Foos Wellness, and she's one of Respin's head health coaches. And if you don't know Respin, it's Halle Barry's platform for perimenopause and menopausal women. And you may recall, if you happen to catch the recent Oprah Winfrey special, Halle Berry was one of the featured guests on this whole menopause topic, along with advocates like Maria Shriver and Dr. Mary Claire. And today we are super excited to talk with Jill. And so Jill and I met at this event, and I had asked a question at a panel Q&A. And afterwards, you approached me, and we just connected. And I could tell the way you were speaking about the topic. You clearly had a deep understanding and knowledge. And of course, I had to learn more. And so in subsequent conversations and in looking through like where you're at and what we've been doing, well, I have to ask, before we get into the nuts and bolts and sort of the nitty gritty of all of this, There are two things about you that I'm dying to learn more about. Well, so first, I learned that earlier this year, you set this goal for yourself to start doing pull-ups. I mean, I'm talking the real deal, like with the bar, like no box or bench or anything. And I was blown away. Well, why was I blown away? Because in my own mind, I had this goal of starting to bench press. Like I like to lift weights, but I'm not super aggressive. And I had my physical assessment done through a sports performance coach, and they're like, "You should really start bench pressing." And I was like, "Bench pressing? Oh my God, that sounds so hard." Well, and I wasn't super strong, but I started doing them, and then lo and behold, I see Jill doing pull-ups, which is like kind of way beyond. And so that's going to be my next goal. So yeah, pull-ups. How about that?
Okay, before you even get into it, I have to say I'm still scarred from middle school when they had us do those fitness tests. And one of the things was doing pull-ups. So I need to know about your pull-up challenge. I'm really curious.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. You two are awesome, and love that you're just spreading the word and awareness to women our age. So pull-ups, yeah. Every January, I decide on a new fitness challenge for myself. So last year it was getting really into HIIT training, which is high intensity interval training. So this January, I said, all right, I got to get back to my pull-ups. So rewind pre-COVID, I was working out with a private trainer for many, many years. It could rip those babies out like they were super easy. But after COVID hit and we were shut down and I had to work out of my home, I never really, even when it opened back up again, I never really went back to my trainer. I just continued. I've been working out my entire life since I was 16. So I have a very good understanding of how to work out and push myself. And I am self-motivated. But for some reason, I couldn't get these pull-ups. And I thought, all right, now's the time. I'm 57, I'm postmenopausal, I'm gonna be a grandma. I need to I need to do something hard. And I also need to be held accountable. And so, even coaches need coaches. And so I set out and found this amazing young man and told him what my goals were. I told him my fear in failing at the goal. And I started on the boxes. I started with the bands. January 1st came, or maybe I started on the 2nd or something. And yeah, it was baby steps along the way, but I practiced on my own. I didn't wait till I saw him every time. I still did the things I had to do in between seeing him so that I could get further down that path for myself. And now I'm up to like 12 full body weight, no band
Wow.
pull-ups. And so last week he switched things up and switched just my hand from being inside to this way, and I'm back to the box. And that's okay.
That's excellent. That's
Mhm.
so excellent. Wow.
Yeah.
So impressed with that.
So
Okay.
I'm really impressed with myself and I'm really proud of myself.
Yay.
Well, we're proud of you too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible, and it really
Yeah.
proves that we can do these things at any age. Well, the
Yes,
second,
and I've inspired people on social media
Yes.
to do this for themselves as well, because I'm getting DMs about all of their training to get the pull-ups done. So that's awesome.
yes,
That's the
definitely.
best.
You're such an inspiration.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing sort of your journey on that. And I know we're all going to be like, okay, we can do this, which is
Mhm.
awesome. And so the other thing that I've seen you talking so much about is this whole red light therapy craze. And I know you've been discussing, the masks and the caps and lots of different things. And we just really want to know, we want to learn your take on red light therapy and, versus like professional beds versus like the at-home blankets. I mean, there's so much out there. So just like tell us really.
Well, before you tell us, we just want to know what they do for you and what kind of results have you seen?
Yeah. So I am a red light therapy junkie. I came across red light therapy pre-COVID and have not stopped.
Wow.
It's not my opinion that I'm giving you. There are thousands of clinical trials showing the efficacy and health outcomes from using red light therapy. So it's mostly there for wound healing, skin health, mitochondrial and cellular function. So basically what red light therapy does, or sports recovery. So what red light therapy does is it hits the mitochondria in our cells. So if we go back to
Okay.
biology class and we have a cell, and inside the cell we have mitochondria, and these are these powerhouses of our cells. And so they take the nutrition or supplements that we're taking, and they convert it into ATP, which is our energy currency to do all these things in our body, right? And so red light therapy works on that. And we know as we age that our mitochondrial function and our quality goes down, especially when we're hitting around that menopausal phase of our life. So I've been using red light therapy on my as a body panel for 5-6 years. I've been using red light therapy. I'm on a 27-year-long hair loss journey, and so I've been using red light therapy cap prescription strength, because you asked about what's the difference between an at-home device and so now these are FDA cleared devices that you can use at home, and they are prescription strength. Not all of them are. You go on Amazon and you're probably not going to get that, but if you go to the right sources, the right companies, you will. So the red light therapy on my cap stimulates the hair follicle, the mitochondria in the hair follicle. So each hair follicle is its own organ. Think about that. Right? So in the organ are all these cells, and in the cells are mitochondria. So the red light therapy hits on the cells in your hair follicle to stimulate something called energy respiration. You need energy in the hair follicle to help grow hair. If you're someone like me and has androgenetic alopecia, which is the genetic predisposition to hair loss, or I also have half a thyroid. So I have a lot of reasons why my hair is triggered to fall out. It takes a lot of work to keep my curls looking like this. It is a full-time job, but I'm in because this is important to me.
It's working.
It doesn't have to be a priority for everyone. It just happens to be a priority for myself. And then I use a red light therapy mask on my face that is also prescription strength, and that has been great. Even if you're someone who goes to get all these medical facial spas, you probably don't leave your doctor's office without sitting under their red light therapy, that they have that circle light, because they know that it's good for wound healing. If you're someone who's getting PRP or anything else on your scalp, if you have psoriasis, eczema, anything wrong with your dandruff, a red light therapy is going to help heal the tissue there. So it's awesome. And then there's also red light therapy for your vagina, a company called Joylux that actually Halle Barry is part of as well. And I do have one. I don't use it as much, but they do have some small studies on the efficacy of helping the tissue inside the vagina. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? Our vaginal tissue is pretty similar to, our tissue on our face, right? And we have collagen and elastin, and we have vaginal atrophy and menopause. So it makes perfect sense that if something's good for your skin on your face, it's also going to help work with the vaginal tissue. So
wow, so interesting.
Yeah. Wow. So much information on that. Yeah.
If you have extra dollars to spend on any at-home device, to me, red light therapy is just a no-brainer. The science is super clear.
Wow. And those blankets, are those for real? Like, do those really, have you seen those blankets? They're like red light coated blankets. You just it's like a sleeping bag. You just kind of slide in. I don't know. I didn't know if that was a real thing or not, but we can check into it more.
A red light therapy blanket, or is that more of a sauna type blanket? Those are different.
Maybe, I don't know. It would look like red light therapy, but I could be wrong. I mean, it looked like
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's different. So many products out there. It's good to kind of get an idea of what to look for. Some are prescription strength, some are not, and just, I guess, how intense you want to sort of dive into that
And
idea.
quick question, can anyone buy prescription strength if you can find it, or do you need a prescription to buy it?
Yeah. No, you don't need a prescription. If you're going to like a dermatologist, and that's someone who specializes in hair loss, because not all dermatologists specialize in hair loss, but they might be selling prescription strength caps to wear on your caps. So that would be a trusted resource. On my website, I have a whole page on all of the devices that I personally use that I know are backed by science, FDA cleared for the use of what they are, and also prescription strength.
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That definitely is enlightening us more on that topic. Well, let's move into some questions that we're so excited to learn from you. So, Ricki, why don't you kick it off for us?
Okay, we want to know about your pillars of health. You're very clear in the things that you believe in are important and critical to get a handle on. Those are nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, community, etc. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, so those are the pillars of health, 5 pillars of health that health coaches are trained to focus on. And
Okay.
so a health coach is someone who works on lifestyle interventions. So how this person is going to be self-motivated and reach their health goals. And so when it comes to midlife women, first of all, everybody has a unique health equation, right? Our fingerprints are unique, our gut microbiomes are unique, and our overall health equation is unique. And that is something that I stress to everyone. There's no one size fits all approach to any of this. We all bring different genetics and family history and lifestyle and goals to the table. So the story is different for everyone. But there are some commonalities, common denominators. So when we're talking about protein for midlife women and beyond,
that's huge.
right? Yeah, there's still a debate over how much, but we know that it's more than we're eating. So it depends on, what your goals are. Are you someone who's in the gym lifting weights like me 4 or 5 times a week and you probably need more protein? Are you someone who's a vegan and how are you going to replicate those macros on a vegan diet?
That's a good point.
Yeah, so there's all different ways to hit it. And working with someone who's really well versed in nutrition can be a helpful person to have on your plan. But we do know that we need more protein. A lot of the science, a lot of the leaders in this area try to make it simple and say 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Right. And so that's a pretty easy equation.
Yeah.
So if you weigh 130 pounds and you're lifting weights, maybe you need at least 130, but you're thinking, oh my gosh, that is so much. And so what I do as a health coach is I want to help you figure out, well, where are you at right now? What are you doing well right now with your protein? And so maybe we're going to track it for a week or two. And then that woman will discover, wow, I'm eating like 65 grams of protein a day. I'm not even close to where I should be. And so we talk about different strategies to increase the protein slowly over time. None of this has to happen overnight. Right.
Right.
And none of it has to happen at all. It's really up to that person whether or not they want to make the change. So protein's a common denominator there, and fiber. We know that a variety of plants every week, I think up to like 30 plants a week is really optimal. And there's a lot of women out there who don't want to eat a lot of vegetables, right? There's people who feel that certain vegetables make them feel bloated or gassy. So again, everyone's equation is different. Maybe some women like to supplement with a fiber supplement and like in their smoothie or in their yogurt, and that's okay too. But we know that getting around 25 to 40 grams of protein a day is optimal. We know that the science has shown in the literature that a woman in midlife, in perimenopause, her gut microbiome changes to a more male-looking gut microbiome, which can cause things like IBS symptoms, gas, bloating, chronic constipation, diarrhea. There's SIBO and there's IBD, which is Crohn's. So there's, again, all different equations of how to get from here to there. And but we know that fiber is extremely beneficial during the menopause transition. And then healthy fats, right? We know that omega-3s are really important to our brain health, to maintaining our satiety, right? Like, excuse me, we know that eating optimal amounts of protein is very satiating, but rounding a well-balanced diet out with healthy fats sort of creates the well-balanced meal for satiety. We need omega-3s for cellular function. So omega-3s are super important, and not everybody wants to eat mackerel and sardines in a can or fish, right? So supplementation might be something that you have to lean into, and that's okay too. So those are the 3 big areas: protein, fiber, and healthy fats are all really important. But how that looks like on your plate is really different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then hydration. I guess we should round out this conversation with hydration. Women are either not drinking enough water, or perhaps water isn't really cutting it. If you're someone like me and in the gym, I drink electrolytes every day. I always have my water bottle with electrolytes. I use them in the morning before I work out and just keep filling it up throughout the day. And, because when we sweat, when we work out, when we urinate, when we, do certain things, or drink a lot of coffee, you're dehydrating your
Yes.
body and you need to rehydrate.
Yeah, so true. So
Yeah.
true. That was a
Yeah.
great recap on nutrition. Do you want to choose maybe one of the other pillars to sort of elaborate on?
Yeah, let's talk about sleep.
Okay.
Sleep is, I love to sleep personally, but
We
sleep
all do.
hits, yeah, sleep hits really hard in midlife, and women are really suffering here. And so, there's the bucket of menopause hormone therapy and having that conversation with your physician
Mhm.
on, are you someone who can take it? Do you want to take it? What do you know about it? And what's that combination look like? Because that's going to really help you with your sleep. Putting that bucket aside and looking at the lifestyle changes that you can make, we know that getting outside to me, the sleep routine starts in the morning, not in the evening. Typically,
Hmm.
people say, oh, my sleep routine is this, it starts at 8 p.m. at night, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I want you to think about it in the morning when you wake up, right?
Oh.
What do most people do when we wake up? We grab our phone, we look at our emails, right? We're getting that blue light in our eyes. When if we just stopped that and went outside, and so if you're in a high rise, that might mean going down to the lobby and walking and going for a walk. I
Hmm.
have dogs, so it makes it a lot easier for me. If you're living in the burbs and have, access to the outdoors, just get outside for
Yeah,
10, 15
so
minutes
important.
without your glasses on and let that natural light, even on a hazy day, flood your eyes, because that's going to stimulate your pineal gland, and your pineal gland
Huh.
is your circadian clock, and it's that 24-hour biological clock. So when you go outside, you have the natural light hit your eyes, that's signaling to your pineal gland, oh, it's time, it's wakeful time, it's alertness time, right? And the same thing goes at the end of the day. If you
Hmm.
can hit those sunset rays, that tells your pineal gland, okay, it's time to start getting ready for bed. And now I
Hmm.
can start producing melatonin. So that's like, 15 minutes out of your morning. Look at your emails outside, not that anyone's reading newspapers anymore, but take your coffee outside,
Yeah, that's
right?
great. Great
Yeah.
advice.
So, yeah. And another one would be stop eating at least 3 hours before bedtime. And this is tough too, especially because we're hitting our summer months, right? And we're
Ugh.
going to want to go sit outside and have a later dinner.
Yep,
Maybe we're eating
grilling
at
late.
7:30.
Yep.
Yeah, right. But we know in the science it shows that eating too close to bedtime can affect your sleep quality. And we're already struggling there. So another one would be alcohol. And I know that this is a really tough topic to talk about with a lot of people, because a lot of women really enjoy their cocktails or a nice glass of red
Hmm.
wine. And that's fine, right? We all need to go in making these decisions intentionally, but just know, and a lot of the doctors online talk about this, that if you are going to drink a cocktail or a glass of wine, it's going to affect your sleep. So if you're okay with that,
Yeah,
then
go
go
for
ahead
it.
and do
Yeah.
it. But you will, while it might help you fall asleep, it's it's resulting in fragmented sleep.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
makes so much
So
sense.
I gave alcohol up. I was never a big drinker. It always really affected me in a negative
Hmm.
way. So it wasn't hard for me, but I gave it up, 4 or 5 years ago altogether. And I was the only person at my son's wedding, the only guest at my son's wedding 2 years ago that did not drink alcohol. And it was amazing to me. But I thought, okay, I want to get up and I want to work out before the brunch. And if I
Love it.
drink alcohol, because that's my priority, is getting in my movement.
Yes, so important.
Yeah, so it all stems of what's important to you,
Hmm.
and what are you willing and ready to do about it.
Yeah, that's excellent.
I just want to add it's not just what's important to you, but understand the trade-offs
Yeah,
because
for
as you
sure.
said, you know, I wouldn't be able to work out and that would affect your whole day.
Yeah,
So if you're okay with what the options are, both good and bad, go for it. But just understand what the ramifications are.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's more bedtime, there's more sleep hacks that could help you out. One is a cool
Sure.
room, right? the science is clear. 65 to 69 degrees is the optimal temperature to sleep in. You can get something like a cooling mattress pad like I have that I love. I swear by it. And if you have a partner, you can make it so each side of the bed has different temperatures. So
Oh my God, I
my
need that
room
right
is,
That's
now.
awesome. Yeah, we were just
it's
talking about that, how our husbands are so different than us.
yes, yes. And the other, yeah, so that one is great. And then obviously going to bed and getting up at the same time every day, even on the weekends, is really, really helpful.
Yeah, that's great. What a great recap on just sort of things to think about day to day and how to live your, just things we're doing anyway. And so how do we
Yeah.
optimize it? So I think that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about connecting sort of with this new life stage as we begin with perimenopause and then into menopause. How do we do this? How do we understand symptoms that we know we have or symptoms that we may not even be aware of during this life stage? And we don't even connect the dots that certain changes in our body can be associated with the stage of life and this whole notion of, what's really happening under the hood. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is such a great topic. And I want to share a little bit about my story to put it in perspective. So I'm 57 and I'm postmenopausal. So when I was going through perimenopause, which was 17 years ago, I also was still raising 5 kids at home. I was in a marriage and also going through a separation and ultimately a divorce. And so, when I would talk to my doctors about some of these symptoms I was experiencing, it was like, oh, Jill, you have a lot going on right now. And, the anxiety is, obviously there because your marriage is breaking down. You have 5 kids, you're a hockey mom, you're running all over the place. So
Sure.
there's always a physician giving me excuses for why I felt the way I did. And it wasn't until I bumped into a functional medicine medical doctor. So this is a medical doctor who left traditional healthcare to pursue her own, opening up her own clinic, and looking at root cause. And there are plenty of traditional and conventional allopathic doctors who also do this really, really well. But it's for them, they need to also jump out of their hula hoop and go figure out what is going on and how to help their women patients. Because I think it's, we don't know the questions to ask and they don't know the questions to ask and they don't know the solve if we did ask the question. So there's a lot of just like this imbalance going on. And so for me, when I am working with midlife women and beyond, to me, it's helping them find the right physician or multiple physicians who are going to help not um, not gaslight them on what they're going through. And dry eyes, hearing changes, vaginal dryness, increased UTIs, painful sex, brain fog, hair loss, skin changes. There's so many things, weight gain, so many things going on that we can see and feel. And we're like, well, wait a second, I haven't changed anything in my lifestyle. Why the heck is this all of a sudden going on? And no one has answers for me. So it's a really confusing and overwhelming time. And I think both for physicians who aren't trained properly on menopause care and for women who aren't able to have the discussion because they themselves can't connect the dots.
Yeah, and I love how you talk about this in sort of all your strategies, and you do talk about the best way to build your health care team. And I don't think we really look at it that way. I think we're all used to our general practitioner, our OB-GYN, the dentist, and then random doctors as health issues might pop up. I mean, honestly, I don't even have a GP right now because one retired and the next one I had moved, and trying to get on the schedule with somebody takes forever. And so tell us as females, like, what do we do? Who do we really need on our team and why?
Yeah, it's such a great question and something that I'm so passionate about. I talk about this all the time on my platform. a lot of women think that when they get through menopause, they don't need to see their OBGYN anymore. And I don't know where that happened and how that message came out, but yeah, you still need pap smears, you still need a mammogram, you still need an annual checkup. 80%, it's like 75 or 80% of women going through menopause are going to experience GSM, which is the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. So those increased UTIs, vaginal dryness, painful sex, many other things. Who are you going to go to for that, right? And now what if you're going to the OBGYN who, on my case, delivered all 5 of my kids, but he's not a trained menopause care expert. So now I have to bring on somebody else. So yes, you need your OBGYN. And if your OBGYN is not someone who is trained in menopause care, because they are not all trained like this, they actually have to step outside of that hula hoop and go get special training. Then you might need to bring on, so for me, I have my functional medicine MD. So she was an OBGYN, she's a women's health doctor. She just left a big hospital because she was frustrated that she couldn't give the care she knew how to give within the confines of that healthcare setting. So she does it on her own in a private clinic. My blood work's all covered by my insurance, but not my consultations with her. I still go to my OBGYN and I go to him for all the other stuff, the pap smears, if I have, a UTI, whatever it is, right? My breast exams. So if you could get that person in one, great. And that's what I do. I have such a wide network of these physicians who are trained in this that I can help refer my clients to them. So there's a one-stop shop. Another person that I think all women our age needs on their healthcare team, and even starting younger, is someone who is well-versed in lipids. So when we go to the doctor, we get our cholesterol panel done, and our cholesterol panel is very basic there. But if you have a family history of heart disease like I do, if you have genetics, like I do. And even if you don't have the family history, you need to be with someone who is well-versed in lipids. And that could be your internist, your general practitioner, your primary care, could be your OBGYN, but it could be a cardiologist, or even better, a preventive cardiologist. So I always say, it makes sense for the preventive cardiologist because that's what they know. Best, but any one of these people will do if they understand the risk of the connection between menopause and heart disease, because heart disease is still the #1 killer for women and men, by the way.
It's so fascinating, that whole connection between, is it the #1 killer because we are going through menopause? Like, that's such an interesting
Yes, because as her estrogen declines, the estrogen is protective of our heart, right? And also what's good for our heart is good for our brain. So we see an increased risk in Alzheimer's and dementia for women during this menopause transition. And so, investigating your heart disease risk is on you. You have got to ask the questions. Can I plug something here that we're doing on Respin? Because it's a free event.
Oh, I think I saw that. Yes, talk about it. I already signed up for it.
Awesome. So next week I'm having on one of the leading lipidologists and preventive cardiologists. He's actually from the University of Chicago, and he's going to come on to the Respin platform, and we're opening up the doors to everybody, the general public, because it's such an important message. But women need to learn how to ask the questions to assess their risk for heart disease. And if their doctor isn't that person, to ask for a referral, or they might have to go search and find this person. So I can give you the link for the free registration if any of your listeners want to join.
Yeah, we'll share that in the show notes for sure. Yeah. It sounds so fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, Jill, I am blown away by everything that you're saying, but I just want to add one thing. Brenda and I talked about this a lot, which is there's a reason that the airlines tell you when there's going to be a crash to put the mask on you first before you put it on your child. And I think so many of us put ourselves on the back burner. We research and research and research our children, our husbands, the greatest restaurants, whatever. And what you're telling us is advocate for yourself, and there's going to be help. Maybe not a total solution, but it's not a Band-Aid approach anymore. And I think that is so important for all of us to just keep in mind. So with that said, can you share a little about how behind research is for women's issues and needs?
Yeah. So this isn't my area of expertise, but here's what I will tell you is it's not a zero. There's obviously been studies done on women, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. But obviously there needs to be more funding available so that we can find out more information. And that's like within the field of heart health, brain health, skin, hair, like all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really cool studies going on. And I wanted to bring attention to a couple of them. One is that there's this man that I had on my podcast. His name is Dr. Bill Campbell, and he's a PhD in exercise physiology. And he has a lab in Florida. He's associated with one of the Florida universities. And he only studies fat loss in women. That's
Oh,
all he
cool.
does. And he's married, and him and his wife are in midlife. And his wife was saying, you know, I'm not doing anything different. And he's a fitness professional too. And I'm not doing
Okay.
anything different, but why am I gaining all this weight? And so
Mm-hmm.
now he's doing a study, the first of its kind, on postmenopausal weight gain. And why is the equation we used before no longer serving us? And how does estrogen play a role and the other hormones play a role? So that's a really cool study that I'm really looking
Love
forward to
that.
see,
That's
because
amazing.
do you know how many women I work with who say, I can't believe that my body has changed the way it has?
Right here.
It's
Yep.
and me too, right? It's unbelievable when you've changed nothing. And so that's going back to those lifestyle interventions, those 5 pillars of health. You know, they all have to be re-looked at. They all have to be reassessed. You know, your equation in your 20s and 30s is not going to be in your equations in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And there's studies going on sleep in postmenopausal women. There's studies going on heart disease in postmenopausal women and the effects of statin therapy or other lipid lowering drugs. So it's not a zero, but it certainly has a lot of work to be done in that area. Something really interesting that happened last week is the American Urology Association just released their 2025 guidelines on the genitourinary syndrome of menopause and how vaginal estrogen should be used as a first-line treatment for women. And the guidelines are for you to print out as a patient and to bring along
Yes.
with you to your physician to have the conversation if they don't know. So that took 3 years to do. So there was a lot of work behind the scenes for this committee of all different types of people to put that together. So things are moving in the right direction. It's just really slow.
It's
And the other
slow,
thing
yeah.
is, in my opinion, is much work that has to be done on women's healthcare and studies in that area. Education for up and coming physicians, in which some schools have already started implementing on menopause care, teaching these 20-year-old medical students how
Yep.
to care for women in menopause, how to understand what are all the symptoms. There's, you know, over hundreds of symptoms. Like, what are these symptoms and what can they look for? So when you watched Tamsin Fidel's M Factor, there was
Yes.
a physician on there. Her name is Dr. Wen Shen. And Dr. Wen Shen, she is from Johns Hopkins, and she's an OBGYN and a professor there. And I had her on my podcast probably 3 seasons ago.
Mhm.
And she's been doing this for decades. She's been trying to educate physicians and educate patients for decades on hormones, menopause, and all of
Yeah.
the changes. So there are some incredible women who are at the helm of this. I do think in the years to come that it's going to look a lot different, hopefully.
That's great. That's great to hear.
So with that said, and now that I'm the M whisperer, I've mentioned to a lot of people, you should find a doctor who specializes in whatever your needs are. We're not really born to suffer, but we kind of always take the back seat. This is what my doctor said, it's fine enough with me. So at what point do we decide that our doctor has dismissed us and it's time to move on? How do you know that? Because the pushback that I'm getting from a lot of just acquaintances is, oh, I love my doctor. He delivered my 3 children. And I'm like, yeah, that was great for when you needed, someone to deliver your kids. But what about now as you go forward? And I find it fascinating that we're all kind of okay with someone who doesn't necessarily know everything or even tries to find solutions, not band-aids. So how do you know when to move on and how to move on?
when you feel bad enough that you don't want to be in the place that you are anymore. I mean, everyone has a different bottom. For me, I have a very proactive approach on my healthcare. And so I don't let myself get to that place. And you shouldn't have to trade off one solution for something that's going to happen in a negative way, right? You shouldn't have to trade off taking a medication for something and then all of a sudden losing your sexual arousal and desire and pleasure. We should be able to come up with solutions for all of these things. And so for me, what I do with my clients, my clients is I work on reconnecting with your why. Well, why do you want your life to look like this? What is that health vision that you have for yourself? And then let's break it down. And did you build the healthcare team that can help you communicate your needs and your feelings, and also present you with a buffet of solutions or referrals if needed, right? And so again, it goes back to physicians weren't trained in menopause care, and there's a lot of catching up to do. And women our age, and especially the generation that came before us, my mom, and
They didn't talk about it.
They didn't talk about it. And we went to the doctor, and whatever the doctor said,
Yep.
that was it. Like, they were the one on the pedestal, and you went home and you took that antibiotic or you took that medication and you didn't ask questions.
Exactly.
I remember from bringing my young children into the pediatrician and always wondering, what's the eczema and psoriasis covering their body? Like, it's got to be something with what I'm feeding. No, food has nothing to do with it, Jill. Just,
Exactly.
put this ointment
They
on her
don't know.
body. Yeah, right.
Band-Aid.
But not only are do they not know, but some physicians are just have no interest in knowing, and they were taught what they were taught, and
Yes.
that's the story they're
That's
sticking
the reality. That is the reality.
with. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I think it's a combination of reconnecting with your why, and your why in your 20s and 30s is not the why you have in your 50s, 60s, and 70s and above, right? Reconnecting with, why do I want to live a certain way, and what do I want that to look like? I don't want to look like a relative who ends up in a nursing home at 72, and for us to go see her, we have to all get in the car and go, like, she can't participate in
Right,
life.
exactly.
Like, I have zero interest in that. So whatever I have to do, I'm doing.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I just want to tell you, if we don't all do it together, I'm stealing from you, reconnecting with your why,
Yeah,
because
please do.
that to me says everything, everything. So just a quick question. If someone is postmenopausal, I'm from the generation that HRT was taboo, don't discuss. They told us to use coconut oil, which is so gross to me. I can just tell you, nobody knew anything. Can somebody, and I know you're not a doctor, but just from your knowledge, can someone still explore HRT? And how would that benefit? And, or, I'm asking doctors about it, and they're basically dismissing me. So
Mhm.
if you could just tell us what the basis of HRT is, because I think a lot of people are unclear about it.
Yeah, so health coach here, not physician, but what I can tell
Yes,
you
yes.
is that there is something called the timing hypothesis, which is being looked at recently. And the timing hypothesis says that when you take menopause hormone therapy within a 10-year window of menopause or before the age of 60, that you will see the most benefits from that
Of
for
course.
bone health, brain health, heart health, all the things under the hood. That's getting relooked at again. Goes back to rebuilding your healthcare team.
Right.
And this is a very nuanced conversation, because my genetics and my family history is not the same as either of yours. And so I do know one of my mentors who's in her 70s was told for decades, you can't go on hormones. And so she didn't, but this is the space she works in, and she had a nuanced conversation with all of her physicians, and they decided to start slow. And she's in her 70s, and she is now on hormones. And she also does the hard work, right? She does the heavy lifting, she does the cardio, she eats well, she lives a very healthy, intentional lifestyle. So I wouldn't say that any doctor that tells you it's a hard no without giving you a reason and really helping you understand this, to me, that's a sign that you probably would be better served with someone who's more well-versed in menopause care.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because you just really don't you just don't know and you don't know what you don't know. And so for
Right.
me, I mean, I didn't seek out investing this topic until I was an empty nester. Well, and why? Well, I was busy, I was working, raising my kids, running around, like just doing keeping up with the day to day was a lot. And, the thought of thinking about something like this was so far removed. And even though for me, I didn't have any, kind of visible symptoms that were kind of slowing me down, I do think we need to make this a priority when we're in this life stage because, how do we know that when we're younger and we're busy and we don't have the time to figure it out, that there isn't something going on with our bodies? And of course, most doctors, as we talked about, they aren't volunteering any information about this. They haven't had the training. And so I guess from your point, it's really just gathering a team together. And if you don't like what you're hearing, like push back and just continue to talk, advocate for yourself and find the right team. Is that kind of what you're
Yes,
recommending?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, right? You shouldn't have to push back.
Yeah.
This should be a collaborative conversation between you and your physician, and your physician might have some really good reasons why he or she
Hmm.
doesn't feel it's right for you, but it's a conversation to have. At the end of the day, we get to make our own decisions, but
Yeah.
so many women are just not having the opportunity to have that conversation or being given a buffet. Like if it's too late for you and you cannot take hormone therapy, vaginal estrogen is for everybody.
Yeah.
Dr. Rachel Rubin or Dr. Kelly Casperson, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, they all talk about it. It's for everybody.
Hmm.
So if your doctor's telling you and you're 82 that you can't take it, that's not the doctor for you. So there are alternatives to hormones, right? If you are someone who cannot take estrogen or progesterone, whatever it is, there are other non-hormonal based options out there. And again, going back to those pillars of health, lifestyle is always going to be the foundation upon which to build all of these other things.
Hmm.
So interesting. So quick question. At the M Factor event, they stressed, and this like just hit me with a ton of bricks, that every single woman will go through perimenopause and menopause. And it was just like, to me, it was like, wow.
Right. Like, of course, right? Yeah.
First, that's true. And women make up 50% of the population. So the conversation is relevant for every single female. So my question is, what's the best way to communicate that to someone else? And also to our daughters who are in their 30s and 40s, you know, they feel like it's a lifetime away. And this is the time to kind of start building the road or at least the map to the future. And I kind of get met with resistance. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. So Halle Berry talks about this openly that she thought, I live a healthy lifestyle and I'm just
Mhm.
gonna breeze
Yes.
through. I'm not going through that. Like that's not for me, right? As if we all had any choice in the matter. So my approach has always been with my kids. And by the way, this is not just a conversation for young women. This is a conversation for men as well. And my approach has always been everything's out on the table, right? We talk about everything, and it's not too early to talk about changes in our body. One of our coaches at Respin, she talks to her young 10-year-old daughter about changes
Wow.
going
That's
on, right?
great.
And
Wow.
so I talked to my daughter's 28. I've been talking to her about sexual pleasure and periods and weight gain or body composition, for decades. So I think the more we normalize the conversation, which takes all of us
Hmm.
conversing about it, right?
Yes.
I still have friends that don't want to talk about it, and you bring up the word sexual pleasure and they're
Yes.
just
Oh my
like,
God.
like they run from the table. So my approach is normalize the conversation, get on it as soon as possible, but first get comfortable with it with yourself.
That's a good point.
Excellent. Great, great advice. And I absolutely love your statement that all of this is setting us up now for our 70s, 80s, and 90s. I mean, we want to be strong. We want to have the best health span that we can as we age, and so that we can be vibrant and optimal. And there's so many ways to do this. And we want to do the right thing. And of course, we want to go with, what's proven and there's so much information out there. And so how do we know how to navigate through all the noise? I mean, it's just really quite a bit of information from all avenues. And you talk about, don't get washed. I love that word, with all the marketing that's going on out there. Because once you start investigating, there really is a lot of information out there. So enlighten us on that notion, and how do we best navigate that?
Yeah, it's so overwhelming out there. I
Mhm.
even get overwhelmed. I have to like stop following certain accounts because it's so overwhelming and I'm hearing conflicting information.
Yes.
Yeah. But there are a couple red flags to look for, right? So, and let's just back up and say women are going to the internet, and it's sort of like the black market of menopause because they're
It
not
is.
getting,
That's a great way to put
yeah,
it.
they're
And it's
not
the
getting
black
their
hole.
needs met. Yeah, totally. But why are we going and searching out there in the first place? Because we're not getting our needs met in the medical
Mm-hmm.
healthcare system,
So true.
right? If we could just, if this was medicalized and people and our doctors knew about all this and could provide us with a buffet of options that we deserve and have the conversation, we wouldn't be running out the back door trying to buy something from, some kind of like snake oil salesman or
Yeah,
something. So
in the back
so
alley.
yeah, totally. So here's, and I've done it too, right? So
Yes.
we've all done it. Like this cream is going to be the one that's going to get rid of the crow's feet around your eyes. Not those other 10, but this one, right? And
Right.
it's got some doctor's name on it, and you're on his website from some ad you saw on Facebook, right? So that's a red flag. If you're going to this is a red flag from me. It might be different for other people, but if you're going to a physician's office and a dermatologist's office or whoever it is, and they're selling you on their 3 to 5 step, you know, topical facial
Good point.
regimen with
Yeah.
their name on the bottle, because so it was private labeled for them, to me that's a red flag, right?
Yes.
Like my insurance is covering my visit for you, but I'm not getting out the door before spending, $450.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's a red flag that I've learned. And then also, like, I just want to bring up the GLP-1 agonist
Yes. Please do.
medications, right? Because there's like, even in Chicago, there's all these like pop-up places, there's pop-up places online that you can go and get these medications. And it's becoming like this uncontrolled area of medicine. So if you are someone, and there are people who legit need these medications, right? So I love this class of medications. It is there for a reason. If you are someone that is going to a doctor, to like a walk-in clinic, and they're going to sell you this GLP-1, or you're getting it online, yet they didn't provide you with a physical exam, they didn't either look at an in-body scan or a DEXA scan with body
Mhm.
composition, if they're not looking at this, if they're not looking at blood work on your metabolic biomarkers,
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease risk, to me, that's a red flag. If you can just sign up and get that, in 2 days in the mail, that's you. If you need that medication, that's for an obesity doctor or someone who is well versed in that area of medicine, who's going to be doing all the things to make sure that you're safe and okay. And then, like, in terms of menopause care, are you going to see a, you know, a menopause care expert, and she or he is only offering you compounded pharmacy hormones and not the ones that can be covered under your insurance? Because you could pretty much get anything you need
Yes.
except testosterone covered under your insurance. And there's lots of different forms and ways in which you can try out what's best for you. But if your doctor is saying, no, I'm going to put the estrogen, the progesterone, and the testosterone all in a pellet. And again, health coach here, not a physician, but these are things I hear all the
Yes.
time.
Yep.
And I have listened to experts on this topic. So that's a red flag.
That's a really good
Great. Great
point.
information, Jill.
So, oh my goodness, you have just given us the best overview of everything. I have one last question, which is, other than you, or in addition to you, I should say, where can people go to find a legitimate healthcare provider that will help them satisfy their whys?
Yeah, so there's a couple places you can look at. One is the Menopause Society, and I think they mentioned this at the M Factor screening
I
as
think they
well in
did, yeah.
Chicago. So not all the doctors on Find a Provider at the Menopause Society, are all trained the same way or work the same way with the training.
Okay.
But that's a really good place to start. Also, word of mouth, if you know a friend or a coworker who's working successfully with a physician who is helping her with her hormones, like that's great. Word of mouth is always great. And then there's Ishwish, which is another place. So it's isswsh.org, and that's another place that you can go to find a provider. And these are doctors who are not just physicians, but NPs and licensed practitioners who are trained in sexual medicine, menopause care medicine, all of those.
So these are certified
Yes.
education as opposed to, I feel like some of those doctor lists are more popularity contests when you see them in certain magazines, the top whatever, plastic surgeon or
Yeah,
orthopedics or
exactly.
whatever.
Hmm.
You never know if they're really the best or they're just the most popular. Yours are saying these are certified people who have had,
Absolutely.
okay, I just want
Yes.
that clarification.
Yes,
Okay,
each physician or licensed practitioner has to go through their training
Training,
modules
yeah.
to get their certification. They have to sit for a test, and those are two very safe
yes,
places to go.
and that's what I love about what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, thank you again so much, Jill. I mean, we're so appreciative of your thoughts and your advice, and you've just so much knowledge. And I just know our listeners are going to be like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? And so much information. And if anybody out there is looking to talk more with Jill, she is offering for our listeners a 30-minute free consult. And we will include that in our show notes and as well as some of the menopause resources that Jill mentioned. And wow, what an enlightening conversation, really. I mean, I knew your stuff, but it's always a pleasure to listen to you. And of course, as Jill had said, remember to always work with trained professionals, to assess you based on your needs. Everybody's unique. We're talking about things that we've heard and we've kind of, things that have kind of are at top of mind, but really specifically, you need to work with somebody that's trained and a professional to give you the advice that is important for you. And again, Jill, we're so grateful for your time. We learned so much. And
Thank you.
so, yes, you're amazing. And for all of our listeners, if you loved this show, please share this episode with somebody that you love, a friend, a family member, a daughter. I mean, people need to know this information. And we're just on the surface of sharing it and enlightening people. And everyone, please follow us and rate us on our podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Chatterbox Besties. Thank you all so much for listening. We love you, and we look forward to the next time on Chatterbox Besties with Brenda and Ricki.
Thank you, Jill, and we love you guys. Bye.
Hi, guys. Just to share, this podcast is solely presented for entertainment and educational purposes. We're your besties and sharing our perspectives with you. With love, your Chatterbox Besties. See you next time.